The divers entered the world's deepest blue hole together, but only one came back alive. In 2000, two experienced divers descended into Egypt's infamous Blue Hole. Only one resurfaced, but when rescuers pulled him from the water, he was screaming the same sentence over and over: "Something was moving below us." Days later, divers recovered his camera, and the final frame recorded before the footage cuts out still terrifies professional divers today. There are places on Earth so beautiful they feel unreal: crystal water, perfect silence, sunlight disappearing endlessly into blue darkness. But some places hide something else beneath their beauty, something ancient, something unexplained. Off the coast of Dahab, Egypt, lies one of the most feared dive sites in the world, the Blue Hole. At first glance, it appears breathtaking. A perfectly circular underwater sinkhole surrounded by coral reefs and calm ocean water. Tourists travel from around the world to see it. Photographers call it paradise. Divers call it something else: the Divers' Cemetery, because over the decades, more than 100 experienced divers have died there. Some bodies were never recovered. Others were found impossibly deep beneath the surface. And many survivors describe the same horrifying sensation before disaster strikes: the feeling that the hole is pulling them downward, as if the darkness itself wants them to keep descending. Officially, scientists explain these deaths through depth narcosis, disorientation, oxygen toxicity, and panic. But those explanations do not account for every story. Stories of unexplained lights deep underwater, strange sounds where no sound should exist, divers surfacing in complete psychological collapse, and cameras recovering footage investigators still refuse to publicly release in full. Tonight, we descend into the true horror mystery of the Blue Hole of Dahab, a place where some believe the ocean floor hides more than rock and water. And before this story ends, you may understand why many professional divers refuse to look down while swimming above the abyss. The Blue Hole lies along the coast of the Red Sea near Dahab, Egypt. From above, the water looks almost unreal, bright turquoise near the reef. Then suddenly, a massive dark blue circle dropping vertically into the earth beneath the sea. The hole measures roughly 300 feet deep, but the true danger is not merely the depth. It is the arch, a narrow underwater tunnel connecting the Blue Hole to the open sea. The arch sits approximately 180 feet below the surface. To experienced technical divers, crossing it became a deadly challenge. The tunnel appears deceptively close, deceptively reachable, but at that depth the human brain begins failing. Nitrogen narcosis clouds judgment, time distorts, fear disappears, confidence increases dangerously. Divers often feel euphoric moments before dying. That is why the Blue Hole earned its terrifying reputation. Bodies recovered there were often discovered still swimming downward, as though they never realized they were dying. Locals who worked near the site developed their own stories far older than modern diving accidents. Some Bedouin legends claim the hole was cursed. Others spoke about hearing sounds rising from beneath the water late at night. And even today, many local guides avoid discussing the deeper areas of the hole after sunset. Not because they believe every legend, but because too many strange things have happened there. Throughout the 1990s, the Blue Hole became internationally famous among extreme divers. Videos spread online showing breathtaking descents into the abyss. Some divers successfully crossed the arch and resurfaced heroes. Others vanished completely. In 1997, a Russian diver disappeared attempting the arch. Search teams located his body days later nearly 300 feet deep. His oxygen tank still contained reserve air. Investigators believed he became disoriented, but according to divers who recovered him, something felt wrong. The body was positioned upright against the rock wall, as though the diver had calmly stopped swimming. One rescuer later claimed the diver's mask camera contained footage of him staring downward into darkness for several minutes before his death. Not panicking, not struggling, simply watching something below him. The footage was never publicly released. Then came another incident. In 1999, two French divers surfaced after a deep descent visibly traumatized. Both refused interviews afterward, but one later described hearing what sounded like metal scraping beneath them while underwater, an impossible sound at that depth. He claimed the noise continued for nearly a minute, then abruptly stopped. Moments later, his dive partner signaled frantically and began ascending too quickly. The partner survived, barely, but afterward, according to witnesses, he repeatedly asked rescuers one question: "Did you see the lights too?" No lights were officially reported that day. In June 2000, British technical diver Daniel Mercer arrived in Dahab, 34 years old, highly experienced, known for documenting dangerous dive locations around the world. Daniel planned to film a complete arch crossing with another diver named Karim Hassan. The dive began normally. Weather conditions were calm, visibility excellent. Witnesses watched both men descend without issue. Daniel's helmet camera recorded much of the dive. The footage later became infamous among divers who privately viewed portions of it. Initially, everything appeared routine: descending bubbles, coral formations, instrument checks. At approximately 140 feet, Daniel's breathing becomes heavier. Karim gestures toward the arch ahead. The tunnel opening appears like a black wound in the reef wall. Then something changes. Daniel's camera tilts downward briefly. Far below the divers, a shape moves through the darkness, not clearly visible, too large to identify. Karim immediately signals Daniel to continue forward, but Daniel keeps staring downward. Seconds later, the audio captures Karim speaking through underwater communication equipment. "Don't go lower." The footage distorts briefly. Then both divers enter the arch. That was the last moment they were seen together. Approximately 11 minutes later, Karim resurfaced alone. Witnesses immediately realized something was wrong. He removed his mask violently, vomited seawater, then began screaming uncontrollably. Rescue teams attempted calming him, but Karim repeated the same sentence again and again. "Something was moving below us." When asked where Daniel was, Karim reportedly became hysterical. He claimed Daniel suddenly changed direction inside the arch. Instead of ascending toward the exit, he descended deeper into darkness. Karim attempted following him briefly. Then he saw something he could never fully describe afterward. In one interview years later, Karim stated, "It looked like the water was opening." Authorities organized recovery dives immediately. Daniel's body was not found, but several days later, another team recovered his camera near a reef wall. The final footage became the center of intense speculation. Because the recording did not end with panic or equipment failure, it ended with silence. According to divers who reviewed the recording, Daniel continued descending after separating from Karim. His instruments reportedly displayed dangerous depth levels, yet he showed no signs of panic, no attempt to ascend. The camera occasionally captured strange flashes deeper beneath him. Some believed they were reflections, others disagreed. Then approximately 6 minutes before the footage ends, Daniel's breathing slows dramatically, almost calm. The darkness around him becomes nearly total. Then something appears at the edge of the camera frame. Movement, circular, massive, too dark to identify. Daniel stops swimming entirely. For nearly 30 seconds, the camera remains motionless. Then Daniel whispers something. The audio quality is distorted, but many who analyze the footage believe he says, "There's another opening." Moments later, the camera tilts downward. The image becomes unstable, and for one brief frame, the footage captures what appears to be lights far beneath the ocean floor, perfectly aligned, like windows. Then the recording cuts out completely. No body was ever recovered. As Blue Hole legends spread online, more divers began sharing strange experiences publicly. Not supernatural stories exactly, something stranger. Many described hearing sounds underwater that should not exist. Whispers, metallic impacts, deep vibrations. One Israeli diver claimed he heard knocking during a solo descent. 3 slow knocks, pause, then 3 more. He assumed another diver was nearby, but according to dive logs, he was completely alone. Another diver described hearing what sounded like distant singing while hovering near the arch. At first he believed it was imagination caused by narcosis, until his recording equipment captured faint audio frequencies investigators could not identify. Perhaps the strangest reports involved visual distortions. Divers repeatedly described seeing lights below, not above, below, far deeper than sunlight could reach, moving slowly in the darkness, watching. Over the years, dozens of bodies were recovered from the Blue Hole, but many were never found at all. Some experts believe deep underwater currents carried remains away through hidden cave systems. Others suspect bodies became trapped inside underwater chambers still unexplored. But local rumors tell a darker story. Some believe there are deeper passages beneath the Blue Hole unknown to official maps. Passages extending into massive underwater cave networks beneath the Red Sea. In 2014, an experienced cave diver allegedly attempted exploring beneath the known dive routes. He never returned. His support team later reported receiving one final communication through underwater equipment before contact ended. According to the report, the diver whispered, "This place keeps going." Then silence. No body was ever found. And despite modern sonar technology, parts of the Blue Hole remain unmapped even today. Scientists strongly reject paranormal explanations surrounding the Blue Hole, and many divers agree the true danger is psychological and physiological. Depth changes perception. Narcosis creates hallucinations. Fear alters memory. Darkness distorts orientation. But even skeptical divers admit something about the Blue Hole feels uniquely disturbing. Perhaps it is the silence. Perhaps it is the endless vertical darkness. Or perhaps it is this: human beings are not meant to stare into bottomless voids for too long, because eventually, the mind begins imagining something staring back. And once that fear enters a diver's thoughts hundreds of feet underwater, panic becomes fatal within seconds. Yet some details remain difficult to explain. The lights, the sounds, the impossible footage, and the repeated testimonies from unrelated divers describing the same terrifying sensation, that something beneath them was moving upward through the dark. One final story continues haunting divers in Dahab to this day. In 2018, 3 experienced divers conducted an unauthorized night dive near the Blue Hole. Only 2 resurfaced. Both refused media interviews afterward, but one local instructor later described their condition as complete psychological shock. According to unofficial accounts, the divers descended approximately 100 feet before noticing lights below them. At first, they assumed another dive team was approaching. Then the lights began moving upward rapidly, far too rapidly. One diver panicked immediately and began ascending. The third diver stayed behind momentarily. That was the last time he was seen alive. Search operations found no body, no equipment, nothing, just open water beneath the arch. And according to one rescuer involved in the search, their sonar briefly detected an unexplained hollow space beneath the known cave system, a space that did not appear on any geological survey. When authorities attempted rescanning the following day, the anomaly was gone. Today, the Blue Hole remains one of the world's most famous dive sites. Tourists still gather along the shore taking photographs above the crystal water. Divers still descend into the abyss chasing adrenaline and beauty, and somewhere below them, Bodies still remain unrecovered in the darkness. But perhaps the most terrifying part of all is this. Many survivors who nearly died inside the blue hole later described the same final sensation before ascending. Not fear, not panic, but temptation. The overwhelming urge to keep descending deeper, as though something far below the ocean floor was waiting for them to come closer. So what do you think really lies beneath the blue hole of Dahab? Natural psychological terror, hidden underwater caves, or something moving in the darkness far below human reach? And if you looked down into endless black water and saw lights staring back up at you, would you keep descending? Comment your theory below. And if you're ready for more true horror mysteries from around the world, subscribe to the Raven Threads, because every thread leads to mystery.